So you've had your kombucha sitting on your counter for 7 to 10 days staring at you. You've tried it tastes perfect, except for one thing. You want to add some flavoring to it, but where do you start? Well, I'm here to answer some of those questions for you, but let me just tell you one thing. When it comes to kombucha, you really can't mess it up. Play around with different combinations, how much fruit you put in each batch. Try different things that work for you that you think you'll like. Take notes on what you put in it so you can recreate it later if you really like it. If you still have questions, go ahead and leave them in the comment section down below. I do try to get to all of those. Also, if you're looking for a wonderful resource, this is the same book I told you about in my How to Make a SCOBY from Scratch and my How to Brew Your First Batch of Kombucha video. It is an invaluable resource when it comes to doing anything with kombucha. But for today, let's go ahead and get started. So let me show you how easy it is to actually flavor your own kombuchas. So the first thing you're gonna need is your kombucha that's been sitting on your counter fermenting. As you can see, it's got a new SCOBY formed on the top and it's ready to be bottled and flavored. You're gonna need your jar or a SCOBY hotel to remove the SCOBY from your jar of kombucha. You'll stick it in there for later for when you wanna start another batch. So you'll wanna have some fresh fruit. Now for this, you can also use frozen fruit, but when you're using frozen fruit, you'll want to take it out the day before so it has time to defrost. You don't want to stick frozen fruit into your jar. You can also use bottled fruit juice from the store. So you can use any type of juice, any brand, any flavor that you want. This is where it gets really fun to play with different flavor combinations if you're not going to use fresh fruit. You can also use dried herbs or powdered herbs like these. I have some cinnamon, some turmeric, and some ground ginger. Of course, all of those ingredients fresh are great too. So before you add fruit to your kombucha, a couple of things. You're going to need a jar with a sealing lid like this to put your brew into. So these by far are my favorite bottles to add flavoring to my kombucha in. It makes it easy to pour when your brew is done and it's ready to be served. But anything you have with a twist top tight lid will work. So start by removing the SCOBY from your tea. Again, you're not going to want to add fruit to that, but you'll want to save this for later. So before we add our tea to our jar, we're going to add some either fresh fruit, some previously frozen fruit, fruit juice, and our herbs. Again, you'll just want to play around with your flavor combinations. So the recommendations that I'm making for you are just a guideline. So for a 48-ounce bottle like this, I would probably add around a cup. If you're making smaller batches in old GT's bottles like this, I would probably start with a 1/4 cup. So for today, I'm going to be making a mixed berry kombucha. So I'm going to be using a blend of cranberry juice, organic tart cherry juice, fresh raspberries, fresh strawberries, and blackberries. So I'm going to do about a 1/4 cup, maybe a little bit less of each one of those things. So go ahead and grab your bottle. Again, if you're using juice, just go ahead and measure it out. Add that to our bottle. Now it's time to add some fresh fruit. So if you're not comfortable adding fresh fruit to your kombucha because it means you're going to have things floating in your drink, you can also use a juicer and juice this first and then add it. Let's go ahead and add some strawberries. The more sugar you add to your jar, the happier your kombucha is going to be. It's just going to have more sugars to feed off of and it's going to get extra fermented, which means extra bubbly. All right, so I've done about a 1/4 cup of everything that I want to add in here. Now it's time to add our kombucha. So go ahead and grab your tea and using that same measuring cup after your SCOBY's been removed, you'll just add your tea to your jar. And you'll want to do this until your jar is completely full. So if you're just experimenting around with different flavors, I wouldn't recommend using a jar this size. Start with smaller jars. So if you don't have spent kombucha bottles like this to put your ferments in, you can also use just plain mason jars. Just make sure you have the lids that secure and will lock in any carbonation. Almost done. So when I'm filling up my jars with fruit and then my kombucha, I like to leave at least an inch of headspace on the top of my bottle. Now some people will tell you they like to fill theirs up all the way, and that's perfectly fine too. I just found that it makes a huge mess when you go to release the gas from the bottle. So for me, I like to leave some room at the top. Once you've filled up your bottle with your fruit and your kombucha, you can put the lid on. So I found the best way to get this fermented in a hurry is to leave it on my counter at room temperature for at least 24 hours. Then after 24 hours, I like to stick it in my fridge for another 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours before I drink it. Make sure the lid is on tight. So any remaining kombucha that you have in your jar, you can make another batch with a different flavor, or you can save at least 1 cup of liquid to start another batch of kombucha, and then enjoy this tea just by itself. So here's a bottle that's been sitting for 3 days. So out on the counter for a day and in the fridge for 2 days. So if you're using these style of bottles to flavor your kombucha, just be careful when you're opening it. If you're not releasing the gas from it every single day, that's totally fine, but it's just gonna have a lot of pressure in that bottle. So I always like to take my hand, put it over the top of the lid, and slowly release it to let the gas escape. And if you were to release this really quickly, you would see a whole bunch of foam come up and out and over and all over the place. So just let it escape slowly, and as you can see, the liquid is starting to rise here in the bottle. So if you had filled up your bottle all the way like some people do, and you went to go release all the pressure in that bottle, all that kombucha that's on the top is gonna come out all over your countertop, and then you've just wasted all the stuff that you spent so much time making. So just release it slowly. Even leaving that headspace there, I kind of have a feeling this one's gonna make a bit of a mess. And this is with like a couple inches of room in this bottle, and it's still making a mess. There we go. So as you can see, this is ready to drink. Super carbonated, and now it's raspberry flavored. So a couple things you can do when your bottle has been open. Obviously this one has fruit in it. If you're not into drinking that fermented fruit, that's okay. You can strain it out and put the kombucha back in the bottle, and that's fine too. Throw the fruit out. For me, I don't really mind it, and I found when I actually pour the juice from the bottle into my cup, most of the fruit goes down towards the bottom of the bottle and isn't actually in my glass. So go ahead and pour yourself a glass of your flavored kombucha. Cheers. Great job, guys, for sticking with me from start to finish on how to make your kombucha. From learning how to make your own SCOBY from scratch, how to brew your kombucha tea, and now how to flavor it. So I hope you guys enjoyed these series of videos. If you're wanting the entire playlist, I will also link that down below. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.